My name is Jessica Asher. I am an English teacher here at Gonzales High School. I'm also the department lead. And a couple years ago, we brought in Poetry Out Loud as a supplemental curriculum. Poetry Out Loud is a national poetry recitation competition. Students memorize and then perform from an anthology of poetry. To compete, they memorize 2 poems, one that is pre-20th century, one that is post. And it's really about bringing those poems to life. So it teaches a lot of close reading skills, and just to kind of really connect with literature and find ways to kind of express yourself even within the world of published literature. So there's a couple of ways. Some classes, including mine, especially my AP literature class, it starts off as an assignment. They must memorize 2 different poems. And then they go on to the class-wide competition. From the class-wide competition, we send people on to the school-wide competition. And then from there, we send a finalist and a runner-up onto the county-wide. Students can also choose to just participate on their own. All the English teachers, even if they're not going to use it as class curriculum, offer that opportunity. And actually, our champion this year was someone who wasn't doing this through a class, but had participated previously, and she decided she wanted to come back for a second year, and she went on to be our finalist and ended up winning county. Students do select their own poems. Like I said, there are some parameters. One must be older than 20th century, one must be younger. The poems all come from the Poetry Out Loud anthology, so they do have to be from that site. But within those parameters, students do get to pick their own poems. And there's a lot of encouragement to really pick a poem that they are going to personally connect to, and that they feel that, expresses them in some way. So even though they are not writing these pieces, they're the ones that are performing them and bringing them to life. So it's really, really helpful if there's something within the poem that they personally connect to. But there's a lot of joy in watching these performances. I don't want to use the word surprise because our kiddos are great, right? They excel at so many different things. But I think the students themselves are often surprised at how well they and their peers do. For most, I would say 90% of the kids that do this is kind of a novel experience that they haven't had much to relate to. They might have done public speaking, or maybe they did a monologue once in theater, but this is really its own skill and its own activity and its own art form, really. So I think students are surprised at how much they're able to do. They all kind of start off in a, we have to do what? And then it turns into a really beautiful performance by the end of it. So for me, it's not surprise. It's just a lot of joy at the performance. So the first thing is understanding the poem. In class, they go through a process called typecast, where they sort of dig deep and they analyze the pieces that they've chosen. And then memorization becomes part of it. We work with students to get them some tips and some tricks on memorization. And their first performance is actually a memorization check. There's no expectation of performance, but the goal is to get through their pieces memorized with no prompting, with nothing in front of them. And then from there, it goes into the performance piece, and they treat it very much like a monologue in drama. They block out the poems. They think about where they're going to put gestures, if they're going to use gestures, when their facial expressions are going to change, when the tone of their voice is going to change. And the goal is really to make these poems as understandable to an audience that hasn't heard these before as possible. So it's about bringing poetry to life and really trying to embody that, from words on the page into this full performance. So the recent event, this year it was early February. Every year, like I said, we send a finalist and a runner-up. This year we were really lucky. We got to send 3 students because we had runner-ups tie. And they're going on to the county-wide, so Monterey County Poetry Out Loud competition. Different high schools in the area compete, and each sends their own finalist and runner-up. So it's a really cool opportunity for our students to sort of take these skills beyond our small community here, and it's really awesome for our students, I think, to see that even though we are a tiny community, we represent ourselves really well at that county-wide level. Last year we placed second in the county. This year this year Nixia won first place. So I think it really brings some possibility to these students of each year that program continues to grow because they go, oh, maybe I can do this because I know someone who did this last year. It's also a really great event to just kind of see what the possibilities within poetry are. The judges come from a wide range of arts and performing backgrounds within the county. They all kind of have these different positions around. They get to see what other students are performing, and they also got to see the Monterey County Poet Laureate perform. So yeah, I think it's just a really cool experience, and also just a way to see kind of the possibilities within performing arts. I think it's really cool for her too, and like I said before, this was someone who did this more than once. So the previous year she placed second, this year she won the whole thing, and I think that really speaks to the idea of practice and endurance and perseverance, that even someone that is gifted in this, it took her 2 rounds. And so I guess the lesson in there is sometimes it takes that second chance, sometimes it takes the third or the fourth, right? That we want our students to know that, yes, these are opportunities, and yes, they're very talented, but these things are competitive. It requires a lot of skill and a lot of practice and a lot of commitment and perseverance. And but the flip side of that is we get to see what's possible when you do all of that. So Nixie is going to go on to represent us at state, and we're just so excited to see what happens there. So this happens every spring, right about December, January. If this is something you're interested in, I encourage you to speak to either your ELA teacher or come to me directly. I'd love to talk to you more about it. It's really funny that you mentioned about freshmen, because there was actually a freshman competing at the countywide level this year. And so it's not just something that happens with upperclassmen. Freshmen can do this from their very first year. And so if you love, I'll even take it back a step. Even if you don't think that poetry is your thing, think about music. We all connect to music. We all connect to songs. That's what poetry is. So if you're someone that loves music, hint, hint, all of you might find that there's a poem out there for you. And so I would encourage you to try this, to see to kind of push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. And we hope to see you perform in the future.